So Chuck, we're going to, I guess I should introduce, Chuck's going to be starting with the education, and I know he's got a gazillion slides that are actually really entertaining. So watch his entertaining slides that they go by too. But Chuck, I imagine based on the group here, you're going to go, pretty quick on the regular stuff and then go over also your taker board. So Chuck has been licensed for, goodness, I'm not sure how many years licensed now, 50 something, Chuck?
I quit counting. It's 1978.
Okay, 1978. So however long that's been is
I took my first exchange class in about 1980 from I can't remember the guy's name now. He's long gone, but that was clear back then.
Chuck Chatham. I know you took it.
There's another guy. I can't remember his name. They traveled around the country and they were teaching exchanging. So
okay, yeah. So Chuck is very experienced. He's also very technologically savvy compared to me and a lot of other people. And he's discovered this Miro board and uses it to create the taker board. So so here we have Chuck Trice from Montrose, Colorado. Go ahead and take over, Chuck. We're going to listen to him talking about what we're doing here for the next 45 minutes or so.
Okay. Well, the taker board has been around for many years, ever since NCE and SEC has been around, and it's called the Zander board, developed by Bud Zander probably 50 or 60 years ago. And there's a couple other boards out there, and John Spinola uses a board every week in their Reno meeting. So there's a lot of them out there, but I use a program. It's a whiteboard, a digital whiteboard called Miro, M-I-R-O. It costs about $190 a year, but boy, you can do everything in it. So the education, just by looking at all the people on the screen, I could tell Blake had asked me to do an introductory class. So this is not going to be an introductory class, and I've eliminated probably 50% of the slides on my slideshow. So I will share my screen and we will get into that. And we may be doing moderated packages before lunch. So let's get into it and see how it goes. I mean, all of you guys are so much more experienced that you can teach this class a whole lot better than I think I could. But I'm going to share my screen. Now, what do you see? Do you see my slide?
Yes, I do. I see preparation.
Okay. There. Okay. I got two screens and I got probably 15 programs open. So it gets kind of daunting. So I think all of us know that preparation is probably key. And I think I like this slide. Now I've just got a book I pull these off of and I put them up there. We know what the problem is, but there's three parts to success. If you've been to come into the meetings, whether it's local or regional or NCE, you'll know that, boy, sometimes you see real good packages and sometimes you don't. But to me, the APOD is probably one of the best that you could have. I mean, that because we're selling investments. And so if you're selling investments, like buying stock, you don't want projected, you don't want stuff that's not true. You want to have actual income and expenses. And there's a thing about projections, and because anytime you have a projection, it's not going to be true. It's just based on what you think you know. And so to me, that's selling potential, and you don't want to sell potential because potential belongs to the person that develops it. Now, we all buy potential. I mean, we love to buy potential, but we just don't pay for it. And so the next big thing is tracking those numbers. I've been going to NCE since before it was Will Jones and Michael Libster, way before then. And so always have to have a system to follow up. And follow up is probably one of the most daunting things that you can do because we don't have time to do it at the meeting. We get back to our office and other things in life take over. So we just kind of let it go. And then if you don't have good numbers, and I'll discuss that later, then you call people up and, oh, it's been a week and I forgot what I offered. And so it's daunting. So I've developed a system around the Xander board that will show us how to do it. So looking for seller needs, it's your deal. I mean, we're all looking for that. And this is one of my favorite slides. I know a guy that his wife took both dogs, but you can see the slide there. So transparency. I think at every meeting, we need to have all the transparency we can, because we want to know about the seller. We want to know about everything that we can about the property we're looking at, because we might own it. And, we want to have a really good experience. Actual income, equity, loan information, motivation. You can talk about motivation if you have the seller's consent. So this has been around NCE and SEC for many, many years. From the very beginning, you need to have control. I mean, you need to have a listing. You don't need any arrangements, broker arrangements, no non-circumvention documents. You need to know that you have control of the listing, because we're counting on you, and we don't want to spend a lot of time and get down the road. Oh, that listing already sold. We need to know who the broker is and talk to the broker. And so everybody knows that, and it's been around forever. The total purpose of this session is to get takers. I mean, if you don't have a taker, you don't have a deal. Now, if you come from the regular brokerage, you don't have a buyer, you don't have a deal. And we use takers, and takers have numbers. Numbers have two parts. You have a meeting number. That's who you are. And you have a package number. And the reason that's so important, because Blake's got 10 packages in the book. Most of the people on this meeting have more than one package. So if you're throwing out your number, 145, okay, that's Alex. Or 107, that's Alex. Okay, Alex, so you got 10 packages. Which one are you offering to the presenter? So I'll show you how and why that makes a big difference. So complete information, you'll notice on the right-hand side of this listing, and this is Cortez, Colorado, there's all kinds of pictures and documents and things, and you need to have that in your system so that you can give that to the broker on the other side. I mean, this is just basic, important information that everybody wants to know. Now, this is my favorite. I've been doing the APOD for many, many years. When I first started out, I'd never heard of a HP12C calculator. And a friend of mine taught me that, and he's still around today. And now I use many different kinds. Selling investments. It is an investment. I mean, you were selling houses once in a while too, but I mean, we're selling investments, and here's the CCIM definition. And we all want this. We want to know where our funds are going, what kind of rate we're going to get. We want to know when we're going to get our money back, plus our profit. And so this should be everybody's definition. And investments come in every single size that you can imagine in every part of the country. But the most important document to me, one of the most, is the APOD, Annual Property Operating Data Sheet. Now, there's 5 key points on this APOD, and 3 of those must be true, and I'll let you guess on which of them must be true. Do you think that would be the gross operating income, or the vacancy factor, or the effective gross? Now, effective gross is usually where I start. That should give you a little bit of a clue. Less expenses gives you NOI. And we all know that, but I guarantee you there's so many variations of this that you would just be amazed at what you see on an APOD. So which one of those must be true? If NOI has to be true, I guarantee you, if you go to get a lender and your NOI is not true, you will not get a loan, and your debt coverage ratio will be bad. You can't get the money. And so it all starts with that NOI. So NOI must be true, but what else must be true? I'll let you guess on that for a little bit. I'm sure you probably know, but for investments, here's what we're doing. We're measuring the risk, and you can't do it if you have projected income and expenses. Because what a lot of brokers do is they will raise the rent, but they don't do anything with the expenses. And it's just so tremendously important that you go through the APOD, the income and the expenses. Now, Howard McCall will always say, I want to see your Schedule E. And that's what you tell the IRS. I mean, you might lie to the IRS, or you might lie, or the seller might lie to you, the broker, to inflate the income and inflate the expenses to get the deductions. But low cap rates are like riding a shark, and that has to be, you'd hope it would be true. But every single one of us will want to know, what can I expect? So you notice that guy didn't have an expectation. I like this slide. There's just so much that can go wrong in an APOD. It's like, the cornbread ain't quite done. So here's the APOD. The market rent can vary. It can vary from building to building and block to block, and two buildings next to each other that's exactly alike can vary. So your gross scheduled income is what the market says. The market says, oh, for a 2-bedroom, you ought to get $975. If you run with that and you do your whole APOD based on that, you'll be sorely wrong. And the vacancy factor, it's been 100% full for years. No, lenders don't buy that argument at all. Over a 5-year period, you'll have a 5 to 7% vacancy, and vacancy can mean you didn't get all the rent. You didn't get paid what you should have got paid. So things just didn't work out as it should be. And so you did not get 100% of your rent. And so that's why you have a 5 to 7% vacancy factor. I don't care if you're full or not. You got to have that. Now, when it comes to expenses, or you deduct the vacancy and you get your effective gross income. And that's usually where I start the analysis, because those other two up there are never true. Depends on your building, depends on your location. As I said, two buildings side by side can have different cap rates, and they look exactly alike. And so when it comes to expenses, the reason you want the Schedule E, or you want a complete breakdown on expenses, is so you can see what is in the expenses. I've seen a lot of APODs where they'll put their truck insurance in there, they'll put their car insurance, they'll put their house insurance in, and all the building insurance. They'll put it all together because you can deduct insurance. That's an expense. I've seen where you can deduct, people put interest expense from their loan in the APOD. Well, it's an expense, but it does not belong in the APOD. And reserves, have you ever seen reserves in an APOD? A lender will oftentimes require you to have reserves. I've seen 5,000 to 50,000 in reserves. Now, if you're giving me that APOD, is that my money that you're reserving? Because I'm going to ask for it if it's in the APOD. If it's in the APOD, it will reduce your NOI, and it should not be in the APOD, because who owns that money? The seller owns that money. Is he going to give it to you? No, I've never seen a seller give up that reserve account. And so if you put that in the APOD, reserves will reduce your NOI. Interest will reduce your NOI, and that makes it look wrong. At one exchange meeting at NCE, the CCIM now brought an APOD and wanted me to look it over. So I looked it over and I said, what's your interest expense and your reserves doing in your APOD? I said, you have just cost your seller about $25,000. And the look was just amazing. Like, really? Now, if you'd have take that $25,000 and add it back to the income, and then come calculate your NOI, your NOI, your cap rate would be much higher. And so that was just a trigger right there. So always, always look at the APOD. Always break down the expenses and have your own APOD. And your own APOD, you should look at the seller's APOD to see what's true, what you can expect, and then you deduct you build your own APOD. And you only need what it takes to run the property. You don't need anything else. You don't want nothing else. Now, debt coverage ratio, I mean, your analysis starts with NOI, and NOI must be true. So if you're using projected NOI, I'm not buying it. Neither is anybody else, because it's projected. I mean, it has its place. So when you do an APOD, the way I do it is I put the actual APOD, actual income, actual expenses, and then right next to it in the next column, I will put projected. And then where you can see that difference, and you guys are all very intelligent, so you can make a decision. Do I buy the potential or do I buy the actual? I mean, we buy potential, but we don't pay for potential. So debt coverage ratio, a lender will want 15 to 25%. That would be 1.15. That would mean everything plus your expenses. So I don't know if anybody had a question or not, but there was a blip there. But a lender will want that debt coverage ratio. So when you add your debt in, if you get down to your cash flow and there's nothing left before tax, I mean, you can pay your debt, but when you look down at your income, you have nothing left after debt service. You're in a world of hurt, because a water heater will cost you $2,000 to $2,500. What if you have to come out of pocket for a water heater? That's why margins are so critical. If you got a 3 or 4% cap rate, you're in trouble already, because you're betting on the come. You're betting on things going up. You're betting on things being better and a lot better. So if you have to start coming out of your pocket with money to pay the taxes, to pay anything else, you miss something on the expenses, you're not going to have a very good investment, and you're going to be taking it back to NCE. I think we all on this program know that it's painful to come out of your pocket with stuff you didn't expect. So here's some interesting formulas, and I like this circle method here because I can remember where everything goes. I have to stop and think about this once in a while just to see where it goes. This one right here, debt coverage ratio, you ought to figure that with every deal. Now, that's after NOI. That's when you start doing your cash flow analysis. So you've done your APOD and you come up with a true NOI. I mean, it has to be as accurate as possible or it's garbage. And so then you'd step over to the debt coverage ratio and see what kind of a loan can I get? And then you go down and you see the next one is, what do I have left over? If you don't have anything left over, then you need to go back and renegotiate the price or the terms or something like that. Now, there's a lot of creative financing, and that's why we're in this business. And so you've got the creative side that I will pay your price if you'll give me my terms. And you may be able to offset that. But remember, if there's nothing left after your debt service, or say if you got $1 million property and you got $500 a month left after debt service, I don't think that's a very good investment. I mean, you may get depreciation, appreciation, and you're betting on the come. It may work out for you, but it scares me to death. So cap rate. Just think of a cap rate like this. If you kind of run the numbers, and we can do that with programs and we can run them real fast. I use a program called T-Value. T-Value. And I use it online, cost me $65 a year. And with T-value, I can just in a heartbeat run different scenarios and cap rates and prices, and it will work out. But just a small movement in the cap rate or the NOI will cause a big movement in the price. You know, as the cap rate goes down, the price goes up. As the price goes down, the cap rate goes up. So it's kind of a game of where you balance it and you try to get the benefits and the cap rate and the income and what's left over for you to operate on to be in balance. And that's why we have RVs and houses and cash, and we add this stuff to the deal to sweeten the deal and to lessen our exposure so we can have a better risk assessment. That's why you measure the risk. Betting on the future, I mean, I've done that. Everybody's done that, but it's a tricky process. So I'd like my bets to be in my favor, kind of like Las Vegas. It's not in my favor. You're buying NOI, right? If you're buying it projected, you're buying a false NOI. If you're buying true, then you have a good base to work from. So, I mean, we get benefits with NOI, but that's part of the sugar on the top, appreciation, depreciation, and capital gain. And this is the end result that we all want, is the numbers. Now, when you go to the NCE meeting or your regional meeting, you want taker numbers. But there is a quality of taker numbers that I call good and no good. Everybody today on this meeting has a meeting ID. Mine is 102. That's who I am. You can find me. You can go to 102. Oh, that's Chuck. Okay, but I've got 5 packages in the book. Which one? 102.3, 102.4. That's how you call out your packages. And we stress that, or I stress it all the time. Now, here's numbers. As you can see, these numbers over here on the right-hand column, if you look at them, this is kind of an old board that's like it was a long time ago. We got to a point to where we did not put the package number in there. And so that makes it really difficult to follow up, because that means I have to call every person on the board, and I don't want to do that. I want to be able to have a system so that I can find out who and where or how my property is going to be. So I use Miro, called top of the board. You can use Excel. I've done this in Excel. I've done it in Zoom. In Excel, I've actually created the squares and made it look exactly like I do on the digital whiteboard. But Zoom has a fairly good whiteboard on their program, and we're using Zoom right now, and one of the apps is a digital whiteboard. And John Spinola uses what's called the in and out board, and it's a form of the Xander board. Now here's the layout. If you look here, you'll see that Blake is the top of the board. He's got a seller carry note. And all these people down on the first row, I just added some in, are direct takers for Blake's note. That if Blake says, I'll take Dan Sanders' units in Ruidoso, then that's a one-on-one deal. That's what you get. That's what the number board does. The numbers that you get from NCE is designed for a one-on-one deal. So here's another one I've laid out. And this is a multifamily property that Ted has in Denver. He got 1, 2, 3, 5 offers, 5 direct offers. Now, when you're at the podium, you'll say, wow, I didn't get any offers. I got 5 offers, and they're probably not very good. Probably 2 or 3 of them, or one of them's not even in the book. So I have no idea who that is. So, and some people get 1 offer and you're just kind of disappointed. Well, if you do a Xander board, then you will not be disappointed, because the first row is 101 takers. And now every row, every column is a taker for the top row. All these people here will take the top row. And there you would have a 3-way deal. And so if Ted would take that one and that one would take him, you have a one-on-one deal. And that's how that works. Let's go to the next slide. Now, vertical columns are called skidding your rig. And I used to think, well, that's not too nice. But what skidding the rig is you just basically want to know who made an offer on the top row, who made offers on those people. And that will give you a 3, 4, or 5-way deal. Now, here's the 3-way deal that I talked about. So Blake, 4 lease houses in Belleville, Illinois. If Blake says, hey, I will take the strip center down at the bottom, the strip center says, I've already said I would take the one on number 122 on top. 122 has said he would take the houses. You got a 3-way deal. And so the top row, this top row right here, that's what you get from NCE. And what I've done is I've gone in and I've said, okay, Ross Fellenstein, I want to know who offered in on Ross Fellenstein. So he got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 offers. So now Blake can have anything on the board. Otherwise, it was Blake would take one of those and that one would take that one, and then you got a one-on-one deal. And so that is kind of unproductive. Let me get rid of that. Okay, and here's a 4-way deal. Blake says, I'll take the shopping center. The shopping center says, well, I don't quite want the top of the board, but I would take Wabusca, John Spinola's Wabusca for $5 million. John says, well, yeah, I would still take Kurt Lord's portfolio in Arkansas. And then Kurt says, already said he'd take Blake's houses. So you have a 4-way deal right there. So a 5-way deal, you must close the loop on every one of these. It doesn't matter. One-on-one, you close the loop. A 3-way deal, you need to close the loop with the top of the board. 5-way deal, you close the loop. You deal clockwise and you deed counterclockwise. So here, Blake says, I'll take the shopping center. The shopping center says, I'll take Blake's houses in Denver. Denver says, I will take the single tenant of Tyler's, and the single tenant says, I will take the RV campground. The RV campground will take the Blake's houses. There you have a 5-way deal. And so that's looks pretty simple like that. And all it is rows and columns. All I have done is taken this from the NCE website, and I've taken all of these from the MCE website. I went over to Ross and said, oh, Ross got 8 or 6 or 7 offers right here. So I'm going to say, okay, he'll take his. And so I just start building the board out horizontally and vertically. Now, you'll notice on here, like 164, I put in there, I have no idea who that is because they're not in either book. I couldn't find them. That they threw out their package number. They're not in the second book. And look, on this one, there's no number. No, just 106. We know that's Ted. 160, 105, Blake Allen. He actually put the number in there, so we know that which package it is. And so you need to know the package number of all these people. Let's see. Here's the takers. The top row is a one-on-one deal. And here's the way I just describe it. It's like an iceberg. You want to know how many deals are just below the surface. Anything below the top row is a 3-way deal, can be a 3-way deal or more. I mean, if you get to one-on-one and you're happy, then quit. If you get to a 3-way deal, you're happy, then quit. If you're not quite sure, start looking for 4- and 5-way deals. So below the green line, all these are the hidden deals, and there's just hundreds of deals that you could put together at NCE. So you can link the levels together, and I'll show you some links right here. Now here's the linking process. The top of the board is Blake Allen. Land is option money. So, okay, he got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 offers right there, or 7 offers. So now I've developed from 7 takers to 37 takers. And that's how that works right there. So now Tony Heminger says to Blake, I'll take your land. Well, I want to see, Tony has got 4 offers here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I built a board for Tony. I put his 4 in there. And so I developed Tony from 4 takers to 27 takers. So now these 2 boards are linked together. Blake can have anything on either board. Let's say that Blake says, okay, I will take this one here. This one will take that one. That one might say, well, I would take that one. And that one says, well, I would take that one, and that one would take that one. So you can develop across the boards and link the boards together. So here's a big one that I've linked together. I've linked Tony. I've taken that from, I start out with Blake, because Blake is the top of the board. So I start out with Blake right there, and I developed him to 27 or 37 takers. I've developed Tony to 27 takers. Now, right down here, Jim Carmichael says I would take Blake's land. Well, Jim is over here. This is Jim right here. Now, so I run a board for Jim, and Jim had 20 takers. So over here, I developed that 20 takers into over 100. So now Blake could have anything on any 3 boards. So you would have, so Blake says, okay, I would take this one. This one says I would take that one. That one says I would take that one. You could take that one and you could go back to that one, and you got to close the loop. So you can do that. Just how much energy you have, how far do you want to take this, how many levels do you want to take it, and so you can take it as many levels deep as you think it needs to be for your seller. Now, I'll tell you from experience that you will get tired after making about a 4-way deal and searching through all of these listings to find that deal that your client will take. And that's why when you get to NCE, or any local group or regional group, it's so important that your package be correct and that your NOI be correct, because we're counting on you. And then your numbers have to be correct. You have to call out the correct number and the correct package. If you got 10 packages in a book, and I've hammered people on this for years, I don't know which one you're offering. And then a week later, you don't know either because you forgot. But so now I want to build a taker board. And when I build a taker board, what I do is I take a screenshot of this taker board, and I will send it to every broker that I think might be in that deal. And I guarantee you the client can understand it, the broker can understand it. It's a visual representation that you can actually make a deal from. And so when you see those, when you call the other brokers and start talking to them about, will you still do this deal? Are you still on board? Then they will say, yes, then you can start structuring your deal.
Let me interrupt with you. Can I interrupt for a second, Chuck?
Yes, sir.
Everybody understands both the power of this as well. Go back to that one you just had, or the one you just had. So in addition, on this kind of a board, if we can create these things properly from these meetings and everybody has it as Chuck wants, now it's not just for me or Jim who end up being at the top of the board and got a bunch of takers. Okay, any one of you who find your package anywhere in this board can start where you are and see, is there anything else that you want up above it, and see if you can't make the loop, okay? Because the loop doesn't have to go from the top down. It can also go from the bottom up. it's better if you take yours, turn it upside down and make yourself at the top of the board, which, you can do if you have takers for your property, but you can also, try to find a means of getting what you want by knowing what they said that they'd take. So for instance, in the board with Jim Carmichael, anything above any of the stickers in the little columns that are vertical, any of those things are going to take the one on top. And Jim, if you want Jim's property, you just need to find something in that column, if not your own, that Jim will take. And then you can get his, okay? And so what I'd say is the loudest little sticky note is going to get the most attention. So that's just another factor of this. And so you see, this happens all the time in exchange groups and it's not recognized. So whenever people are, we all say take the taker numbers, this is inherent, that's already information built into our systems that we're not using. And so this is what Chuck's trying to say, is that there are so many deals out there. You should all be having the problem that I have, which is not how to find the deals or the properties, but it's how to have enough time to write the deals and get them the due diligence done and get them closed. And so that, this is just to, reiterate, to show you how many deals come out of these meetings. And when you compare this to the regular kind of marketing we do by putting something out on the information exchange or the MLS, this is way more powerful. So.
Right. Now, what Blake just says is that you can take any square on this board and make it the top of the board. And that's exactly what I did. I took, where's my arrow here? Whoops, let me do this. Right there. Now I want this right here. So I have taken Tony and made him the top of the board. Let me do that. Let me go back up here.
You've got it there on the right. Yeah.
All right, here's where I wanted to be.
Okay.
So I take Tony. Tony is right here. There's Tony right there. So I've taken Tony and I've making him the top of the board right here. And so all of these right here that is under Tony, I have turned sideways right here. And so that, then you got Tony the top of the board, and then you take, okay, who is offered in on this one right here? That one. That one right there. So that's a person got 5 offers. And so you just develop them down like that. The same with Jim Carmichael. He was right here. And so I took him and made him the top of the board, and he got all of these offers right here. He got 20. So I take all of those 20s and I start developing them down and figure out who offered in on his top of the board. And that's how you do the linking. That's how you do the boards. Anybody can be the top of the board, and then you develop it vertically. And that's how you come up with the deals.
Does anyone have any questions for Chuck? I know that this Miro thing might be a little new to some of you. Anyways, just unmute yourself and ask a question if you want, or put it in the chat and we'll find a time to ask it. Thank you. Sorry, Chuck.
That's all right. You can have type of boards. I mean, we're just dealing with property right here, but you can have land and cash. And that's what Blake was talking about in the beginning. He's going to try to develop a place for paper. And so we'd have a paper board, you develop it just like you would a property board. So, are numbers important? When you go to NCE coming this April, I'll be standing there saying, you need more than just your meeting number. When you throw it out, you need your meeting number and your package number. And so that's a big theme. And you can see why they're important. They're designed to find deals. And you call out your number correctly. And here's all of us brokers, we're saying, you want to do what? I mean, I love that caption right there, because we've got so much experience. We've got so many creative ideas and ways to do business. I mean, things we just would have never thought of 10 years ago with technology and how we can put this stuff together. So it's just amazing. So the ball is now in your court, and that's the end of my presentation. And you know, my presentation was designed for a full day, and I took all of it out except this portion that you got here, and that's because of the experience of everybody on this panel. So, thanks.
All right. Thank you, Chuck. That was great and absolutely right and concise for this group. So we didn't need all of the other counseling formulas, all that other stuff that we normally discuss, but I hope you all appreciate what Chuck does. Chuck helps me a lot by putting these deals together, and our problem is, having time to do the deals, not trying to find deals. So all righty, so we are a few minutes early for taking our 10 o'clock break. Does anybody want to have anything they want to talk about, or anybody want to introduce themselves?
I have a question for Chuck.
Yes.
Chuck, would you be willing, I mean, you're so good at this and it comes easy for you. If anybody approached you and said, would you take my numbers and make me a board, would you do that for a fee?
Well, I've been doing it without a fee for a long time. So, yeah, a fee would be great, but I mean, it's not a requirement at all. But if you see on the board that I've got several boards on the Miro platform, you can have as many boards as you want. On the free account, you can have 3 boards, but I take one board and I make 20 meetings out of it. So yes, the boards are not hard to build, and I will build you a board, and I will even show you how to build it if you want to do that sometime.
Okay, I was just curious because I know you are on the computer and you play with this stuff a lot,
Yes.
Thank you.
So, Chuck, this is Dan. I have a question. So you did a board for Debbie a while back, maybe several months ago. Does that board still available as an example?
It could be. I mean, that would be up to Debbie and her clients, and all the brokers on that board. Even after several months, they may be willing to still do that deal if they haven't sold their property. So yes, the board can be used many times later. In fact, we've got books out there that people keep for years. So I don't see why you couldn't, if everybody's in agreement, use the board that you did 3 months ago.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions for Chuck?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
Hi,
Okay.
Cornelia.
Hi, Chuck. Nice to see you. So you mentioned all those packages and the loops and the 3 to 5 ways or 7 ways to do a deal. I'm assuming all these deals have to be in lieu of that we've been studying. And yes,
What we've been studying.
the in lieu of.
Oh, yeah. And I think Cornelia is talking about the book, 101 recipes, 100 recipes for deals and exchanges.
Yes.
Okay.
And what happens if one of those deals, like what happens if one of those deals don't necessarily work out? Like, how do you close that loop? Do you have any?
Yeah, and that's the beauty of one of the beauties of the board. I'm glad you brought that up, because you got such a visual representation that if one of the participants on the board says, nah, so I don't want to do that anymore, then you just say, okay, Mr. Seller, or the next person down, wherever you're working on, say, what else would you take? And then you just draw the arrow over to there and you continue on, and you call that broker up and say, hey, are you still willing to do what you said you would do at that meeting? And I'd say most of the times, if there's a chance to make a deal, they'll say yes. So somebody dropping out is not a big problem if you got a visual representation of all the deals that happened at that meeting. Now, if you just got a bunch of numbers, you will never make that work, because you don't know who to call or why to call or what to call. So, but if you got all of those visual representations of the squares, then your seller or the next broker in line can make a decision. Yes, thank you.
Right, and Cornelia, to answer directly just on the logistics of how it is, yes, each of the people would, who didn't want the property that was offered to them would accept it subject to taking something in lieu. And the something in lieu would be the other leg that Chuck's referring to, okay? So, and you're absolutely right, there's less than 100% chance of closing a deal. When you take numbers less than 1 and you multiply them by each other, it does reduce the chances. So the shorter number of legs, the better, okay? But it also tells you, somebody who has it, who wants it. So in a certain capacity, if you have a two-way exchange that's not going to happen, the three-way exchange actually increases the probability, okay? Because it goes from a 0 to a higher number, because if the two-way exchange is not going to happen, it's not going to happen.
And I think also one real quick, everything that Chuck's talking about, all of these deals are obviously subject to due diligence.
Of course, yeah,
So-
yeah. So everybody has to look, make sure nobody's a liar and everything's going and that you really want it after you go look at it.
That's
Teresa,
why you got true NOI.
yeah. And so Teresa, you got a question?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. So, we present these at the meetings, we present it here, but I'm wondering if you also are going to move to a format where it's live, right? Like, you might be missing a leg to one of the deals. If we were on a virtual platform where we were constantly like, hey, I've got a property that might qualify, because something fell out because of due diligence, or we didn't have a leg, or whatever the thing is, it's, for me, it's like, it's not enough to just have the meetings when you bring it there, because we're interacting real time and we need help, right? And so having some kind of listserv or database and then being able to draw attention to it. So like on the CCIM, people throw out there, hey, I got 1031 money right now, or I'm looking for this. For our group to also have that would be, I feel, very beneficial.
Right. And we do technically at NCE, people can put packages on anytime. And if you're a member, you can always search. So technically we sort of have an information exchange that's like that. But I agree. And that's sort of one of the goals of 1031 paper is to have the education in a computer, version where you can go in the middle of the night if you want to and click and take classes. And then the same, having the marketplace where the things are available, just like they are on NCE and SEC. People just don't avail themselves of that much. But yeah, where you can, the idea is to have a system built in where we can make offers at any time in between the meetings. And it's just going to take some time, and we're all working together to see if we can accomplish that goal.
What
you.
this platform does is you could also take all the numbers that you're going to get from this meeting right here, and you could develop a taker board, and then you can have a live show or meeting like Teresa is saying, and everybody that's on that board could come to that meeting, and that would be all the vertical columns and all the horizontal columns or rows, and you could actually do a live deal of, okay, will you take this, or George, would you take that, or Tom, would you take that? And so, yes, and that's how people have done it in the past before the digital age, and it was all done right in the office. It takes time. It takes a little 3 or 4 hours to develop a 3 or 4 or 5-way deal.
Right. And absolutely, that's a great idea, Chuck, with Zoom technology and the breakout room kind of idea. And just with these regular meetings, we could, you could look at that taker board and have one of those little bits of sticky notes that have maybe 12 properties together and invite just specifically those dozen people and see how a deal could be made. And, that all of these are ways to enhance what we do at the exchange meetings and also to educate other people, because you can imagine a broker who's never seen exchanging should be blown away by what we're doing already.
Well, if you've never, and I've actually done this, I've put up on the top of the board the seller, and then down below we'll say, okay, who's a taker for the seller's property? And you get 3 or 4 or 5 people. And then everybody wants to stop. You say, no, don't stop. And now we start developing vertically and see who's a taker for the top row. And I guarantee you, your client will understand that as quick as you, the broker, will understand the rows and the columns. And then they can actually visually see the deal. And when you can see the deal instead of seeing a number, and you can link all of this to the NCE website. I can link it to anything that's got an address. And so you can say, boom, pull up that package and look at it. And so it's very easy to do that kind of stuff. And it's so highly visual that people will really like it.
You know, I've had an opportunity to do that with personal property with 270 people in the room. And we did a board on personal property. And I think we made at least 50 deals that actually it came and exchanged personal property. There was like 50 deals on the board. So this can be done like that. It's kind of an interesting way to do it. I also wanted to suggest that, hey, we go to NCE. I know that 80% of the numbers that I get are just a number. There's no package associated with it. So I understand that you come there and maybe you have another idea or you know of a property that would fit and it's not your property, it's not in the board or whatever. And so you put your number in as interested. But the thing that I don't see people doing when they just put their number in is they had an idea. And if they would take that idea and they would write it up as a mini offer, now you actually have something that looks like a package that you can put into your board. And if later, you know, you had a not in book that you present at the front of the room, and there's a way for these guys to tie what you did not in book to the presentation not in book, now you can still do what you're doing. It's a little harder because you don't have the number assigned to it. But if we could assign a number to a not in book when we got there, because we didn't have a chance to get it in the book, just sign it during our presentation. Hey, this will be my package number 7. And if you could do that, that might help. And the other thing I want to suggest, you talk about the persistence between meetings. So I may have a package and maybe my number at this meeting is 175 and it was package number 2. Well, that package is on the NCE website, but the next time I come to a meeting, I'm number 164 and it's package number 3. And so But the package is the same package. It's got an internal ID in NCE. And if there was a way to tie the number and package to the internal ID and then persist those takers in the NCE system, then you could actually go across meetings even, because some of these properties are around for years in there and you could always get back to it. So I'm wondering, I would think the digital works because there is a unique ID for the package. It's just whether we can get to that and preserve it.
Well, that's why we've stressed or asked or have indicated for several years that we would like to have permanent numbers.
Yeah.
So that
that's a whole-
speed would
yeah, there's
always be
logistics in that.
106.
Yeah, and there's logistics in that, but we're working on that. So by creating a system from scratch that we're doing here, we can really figure that out. Everybody has a nerd's number who's a realtor. So, we can figure out how to do that. We don't want a big, long 10-digit number, obviously, but we can figure that out. But anyhow, we're 5 minutes into our break. So here in now 10 minutes, we'll at 10:15, we'll start. Actually, why don't we go ahead and give ourselves 15 minutes? So at 10:20, let's reconvene and I'll go through my 1031 paper class and which is, one of the formulas we'll use. Of course, it's not written in stone. That's got to be used at this meeting. So, all righty, folks, see you in 15 minutes. If you want to chat amongst yourselves, we'll lead it. The room's going to be open. So, all righty.
That Blake guy, tell you what, I mean, oh, he's still listening.
See you
I'll
guys.
hide it. That way you don't know if I'm listening or not. So I think we can make this system, that's one of the benefits of being able to build things from scratch is we can figure out how we want to idealize these these kind of things. But the other thing is the matching of the equities. There used to be ways that they would do takers trying to say by matching equities and things like that. And that just leads to so many false positives that it doesn't help. But when we do have the taker board like we have, it's really valuable if it has, like Chuck has done, the subset of information that shows the value, debt, and equity, and then has the links to the packages. And then you really have all of it, because sometimes you'll have $100,000 property in a string with many properties that are over $1 million and things like that. And it can be done. And paper is the key to making it happen most of the times. But, you know, whatever the ideas of the transaction are, you know, this is all some complicated stuff, but, you know, this is a way to make deals out of, you know, nothing, basically, out of non-existent deals. So I think it's a wonderful system, and we're open to all suggestions. So like I said, if we need to input the packages and get the moderator set up ahead of time, and it's such a pain in the neck, we'll just hire more people until we make it work. And that's kind of, you know, and let's idealize the system. And everybody here is literally on the first one of these Zoom meetings that we're having.
Talking
And
to the group. It was-
Yeah, and so that, you know, makes a big, you know, it gives us the opportunities to decide how we're gonna make this thing happen, so.
And when you go to the NCE meeting, would you rather have more packages moderated or more stuff like quick pitches and most motivated and cash and paper or I've got a problem or something like that?
Yeah, because and at the meetings, the problem is that we try to open as many doors and opportunities as we can for people, because they spend a big chunk of money. They come there, they invest time. And a few years back, I remember we had a meeting where we had a bunch of new people who'd never been before to the NCE meeting. They were really, I mean, they were experienced in exchanging. They belonged to local groups or whatever, but it was a large chunk of people showed up and were green to our meeting scenario, and ended up not getting to present the packages they thought they were going to get to present, because, you know, you show up with 4 or 5 packages and you got 500 people and you give them 5 or 6 minutes per package to present. You start to run out of day, and it happens over and over again. And the average in all the meetings that I ran, and Chuck helped me run, and Blake helped me run, and Chuck Sutherland, everybody who's been involved, what we found is that if you have a 90-minute session, okay, you can still only get about 40 presentations a day if you're doing 5 and 6 minute presentations, okay? And if you've got 150 people there and they've each got 4 or 5 packages, that's 600 packages over a 3-day period. So the exposure, the opportunity is so restricted by our time. Now, if we all went out and hung out for a whole month and all we did was solve the packages, then it'd be great, because we spend as much time as it takes on every single package. And we just can't do that. So we're challenged by logistical nightmares. And Chuck's board is a terrific, wonderful way to do it. But you all got to participate, and you got to follow the rules, and you got to get your stuff in, and you got to get your packages numbered, and you don't call out if you don't have a package. And so it becomes a much slower, more drawn out affair with a lot less exposure. And the NCE meetings, like most exchange meetings, are about exposure. They're about networking. They're about getting the word out there, getting the music going so people can join the music. And that's the beauty of it. And so we have to ask people's indulgence on that, because they really do. Some people really get upset if they don't get to come in and do everything they want to do right off the bat.
And that's so important. And it starts with you, the attendee, and me,
Exactly.
the attendee. And
Yeah,
you
that's
got to
why-
fill out your package. You got to call out your numbers correctly. And then you got to be on time at the meeting and the presentation. So you got to sign up early. You got to get pre-moderated. So it's all up to us.
And you got to treat it like a commitment. You got to treat it like a commitment. It can't just be a whim. It's got to be something that you want to do, because it takes effort.
Well, I am just thrilled that you are all so passionate about it.